Welcome to History to Snooze by. Tonight, we invite you to rest your thoughts and float gently into a world of wonder. A journey that takes you deep inside the human body, not as a scientist in a lab, but as a peaceful traveler aboard a miniature vessel. Here, every heartbeat becomes a distant drum, every breath a breeze that stirs the currents of life. As you settle in, remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy these calming explorations, and let your mind soften with each breath. As we begin the journey, close your eyes, let go of the day behind you, and imagine yourself becoming smaller and smaller, until the entire world stretches far above you, and a single droplet of water looms like a glassy mountain. You are now no bigger than a grain of pollen, and before you floats a gleaming micro-submarine, shaped like a gentle teardrop, humming softly with energy. Its door opens like the petals of a flower, inviting you in. Step aboard, take your seat in the warm, quiet cabin, and watch as the walls glow with soft amber light. The engines purr like a cat sleeping beside a fire. You are safe, you are calm, and the voyage is about to begin. Part 1. The Entry Gate. You are drifting in silence. All around you, the world is enormous. Not just big, but unimaginably vast. A single blade of grass looks as tall as a tree. A drop of dew shines brighter than the moon. You are no longer the size you once were. You have become something much smaller. As small as a dust particle. Smaller than a grain of sand. You float weightlessly beside a shining structure. It is your vessel, a micro-submarine. Its surface gleams with a pearly shimmer, like the inside of a seashell. It is no larger than a single cell, yet within it is warmth, quiet, and calm. It waits patiently for you. The door slides open. Soft light spills into the air like morning sun through fog. You step inside and find a single cushioned seat. It fits you perfectly. The walls are smooth, glowing softly with pale gold light. Tiny panels blink with rhythm. You hear a low, steady hum beneath your feet. It is not mechanical. It feels more like the quiet purr of a living creature. You are safe here, and you are not alone. Sensors keep watch. The systems are gentle and precise. Everything is ready. Outside the window, a towering figure rises. A human being. To your miniature eyes, the person stands like a living mountain. Every pore on their skin is a cavern. Every hair is a tree trunk. And yet, you are going inside. Not through a surgical cut. Not through a machine. But through one of the body's natural gateways. You are entering through the mouth. The submarine begins to move. It rises on a cushion of invisible energy, hovering silently. Then it tilts forward. Ahead, the lips begin to part. A pink opening yawns wide, as if the cave of a warm and gentle beast is inviting you in. There is no danger, only curiosity, only exploration. You pass through the lips. The world shifts around you. The light becomes softer, reddish and warm. The air is more humid now. Tiny droplets float, catching the light like mist in a forest. This is the oral cavity, the mouth. The beginning of every meal, every breath, every song and whisper. To your left and right, enormous white pillars rise. Teeth, they gleam in the low light. Flat molars. Pointed canines. Chiseled incisors. Each tooth is alive in its own way, embedded in bone and wrapped in nerves. They are perfectly still now, but they hold memories. Thousands of meals. Hundreds of smiles. Countless words spoken and shared. The tongue stretches before you like a gently moving hill. Its surface ripples and shifts, dotted with tiny buds. Taste buds. They are like delicate mushrooms in a misty field. Each one tuned to sense sweetness, saltiness, bitterness, sourness, and umami. You can almost feel them reaching for flavor. Even now, the faint trace of something sweet lingers here. The ghost of a fruit. Perhaps a sip of tea. The tongue presses upward and downward in slow waves, helping to shape sound and move food. But right now it sleeps. The submarine glides forward, hugging the gentle curve of the tongue. Saliva pools nearby, forming tiny lakes and streams. Its movement is unhurried. Within it float enzymes, invisible workers that begin the process of breaking down food. Even before the stomach sees it, digestion has already begun here. This place is not only about speech or taste. It is a laboratory, a warm chamber of transformation. You drift past the cheeks. The walls around you glisten. They are soft and pink, veined with fine capillaries. Moisture beads on the surfaces like dew on flower petals. You are surrounded by quiet sounds. The distant heartbeat, the slight rush of air, a body at rest, breathing, pulsing, living. Ahead you see the archway of the soft palate. A gentle curve leads deeper into the throat. Hanging from the center is the uvula, a tiny teardrop-shaped curtain that sways softly with each breath. It feels ceremonial, like the tassel on a sacred gateway. You drift beneath it and enter the pharynx. Now the tunnel narrows. The muscles here are more active. They move rhythmically, guiding food and air through separate paths. This is the body's decision point, the fork in the road. The esophagus waits to carry meals to the stomach. The trachea opens into the lungs for each breath. But you will go neither of those ways. Your path is far smaller, more hidden. Just beside the lining of the throat, in the quiet tissues lies your true entry point, a web of capillaries, so fine and delicate that they shimmer with translucence. Here, red blood cells pass in single file. Oxygen flows in. Carbon dioxide flows out. A microscopic dance of balance and exchange. The submarine's engines change tone. You feel a slight shift beneath your seat. The vessel tilts gently. The front narrows. And slowly, it presses forward. Through a thin membrane. Thinner than paper. Thinner than a whisper. You pass through and enter the bloodstream. The world transforms. The space around you is narrower, but alive with motion. Red blood cells drift like lily pads on a slow river. They are not solid. They flex and bend as they move. Soft disks full of oxygen. They do not have a nucleus. Their purpose is simple and vital: to carry breath to every part of the body. White blood cells pass more slowly. They are larger, cloud-like, and seem to sense the environment. They float like silent sentinels, searching for invaders, watching for signs of harm. They do not rush, but they are ready. The plasma around you is not empty. It is filled with dissolved nutrients, hormones, proteins, and salts. Everything the body needs. Everything it carries. Everything it whispers to itself from cell to cell. The walls of the capillaries are soft, like wet silk. You can see through them faintly. Beyond them lies the tissue, muscle, nerve, skin. Each vessel feeds its own neighborhood. Each drop of blood brings news from the heart. You follow the current. The submarine is carried gently forward. It hums quietly. You feel its warmth, its stillness. Time here is not the same. It stretches. It flows like the blood itself. You pass through valves that open and close like blooming flowers. You see smaller vessels branch off, then rejoin. Each path has purpose. Each twist and turn leads to a destination. This is only the beginning. The bloodstream is vast, a hidden highway. And up ahead something larger awaits. The sound of the heartbeat grows louder. You can feel it now, not just in your ears, but in the air around you. A deep thump, then another. Like a drum calling from afar, it draws you forward. The walls of the vessel widen. You are no longer in the smallest streams. You are entering a wider passage. A vein, still soft, still alive with motion, but stronger, more forceful. The flow quickens. You pass more red cells now. The current carries you faster. You are being drawn toward the source of the beat, the heart. But for now you rest in the flow, floating, breathing, safe within the liquid river of life. Your journey has only just begun. Part 2. The River of Life. You are floating now, held gently in the current of something ancient and essential. The bloodstream surrounds you like a warm river, flowing with quiet purpose through a vast and living tunnel. Your micro-submarine drifts peacefully forward, guided not by propellers or force, but by the natural motion of the blood itself. This is not a chaotic ride. It is steady, rhythmic, and soft, like being carried through a dream. All around you, red blood cells move with quiet grace. They are soft, flexible discs, each one shaped like a shallow bowl. Their surface curves inward, allowing them to squeeze through the narrowest spaces to fold and bend and pass where few others could go. They do not speak. They do not need to. Their language is silent and ancient. They carry oxygen, gathered from the lungs, and offer it to the deepest parts of the body without a sound. They pass by in long lines, bumping gently against one another like fallen leaves floating down a calm stream. Every so often, you see a different form drifting in the flow. Larger, less uniform, and slower moving, the white blood cells seem to glow faintly, as though they are listening to something beyond the surface. These are the watchers, the protectors. They scan the environment with invisible senses, looking for anything out of place. They do not rush. They are patient. You feel safe in their presence, as though they are keeping a quiet vigil over the world within. The plasma around you is not empty space. It is alive with nutrients, proteins, sugars, and messages, tiny chemical signals that carry instructions from one part of the body to another. Hormones drift like whispered thoughts. Electrolytes move in gentle patterns. The fluid itself is golden and translucent, lit from within by a faint glow that seems to come from everywhere at once. There is no harsh light here, no sharp corners, only the soft pulse of the current and the distant echo of the heartbeat calling you forward. The walls of the blood vessel are close now, but not oppressive. They are made of living cells layered in smooth sheets. They pulse slightly with every beat of the heart, expanding and contracting in quiet harmony with the flow. Tiny openings in the vessel walls allow certain molecules to pass through. This is not a barrier. It is a breathing boundary, alive with decisions. The vessel is not a tube. It is a thinking path, responsive and alert to the body's needs. As you continue, you begin to notice changes. The space around you grows wider. The current speeds up, gently nudging your vessel faster along the path. You are leaving the capillaries now. The smallest vessels are behind you. Ahead lies something larger, a vein, a broader highway in the circulatory system. Here, blood returning from the body begins its journey back to the heart. It is a path of reunion, of return. The cells around you carry carbon dioxide now, ready to release it in the lungs and take in oxygen once more. The color of the blood has shifted subtly. Where it once gleamed bright red, it is now a deeper, darker shade. This is deoxygenated blood, calm and rich with stories gathered from the cells it has served. It is not used up. It is simply waiting to be renewed. You pass through gentle bends and curves. The walls of the vessel respond with subtle changes in tone and pressure. Everything here is coordinated, elegant, and calm. You notice valves now, placed at intervals along the vein. They open softly as you pass, then close behind you with a whisper. These one-way gates ensure that the flow continues in the right direction, even when the path turns upward or slows. They are simple, but vital guardians of order in the quiet stream. Each one opens for your tiny ship as if recognizing a friend, then seals itself again without fuss. The pulse grows stronger. It is not loud, but it is steady, like a quiet drumbeat coming from far ahead. The rhythm of the heart is no longer just a distant sound. It has become a presence in the flow. You are approaching the core, the engine, the silent center of the circulatory world. The veins join others, becoming larger. The vessel widens, and your path becomes a true river. The flow around you increases. You feel it in your seat, a gentle but insistent push guiding you onward. Eventually, you reach the superior vena cava, one of the great veins that returns blood to the heart from the upper body. It is vast compared to the capillaries where your journey began, and yet even this grand vessel is just a single tributary in the great cycle. The walls here are thicker, the current is stronger, and still, your microsub moves with ease, held steady by its quiet systems and the natural rhythm of the body. As you enter the heart, everything changes. Not abruptly, but like the shift in air before a storm. You are no longer in a vessel. You are entering a chamber. The right atrium opens before you, a spacious room made of living muscle. Its walls ripple slowly, pulling blood inward with a gentle suction. This is the heart's reception hall, where returning blood first gathers. The space is dim, warm, and full of motion. You feel the current slow as the blood pools here, waiting for its turn to move deeper. The walls contract softly, guiding the blood through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. Your vessel follows, slipping through the open gateway and entering a more muscular chamber. This space feels more powerful, more alive with tension. The heartbeat echoes more clearly now, not as a sound, but as a wave of pressure. The right ventricle contracts with a slow, strong push, sending the blood out toward the lungs through the pulmonary artery. You pass into the artery and feel the sudden shift as the flow accelerates. This is the pulmonary circuit, a loop dedicated to refreshing the blood with oxygen. The lungs are not far now, and your journey will soon carry you into their branching architecture, where the air meets the blood in a delicate exchange. But here, within the river of life, you pause. Just for a moment. Just long enough to notice the wonder of what surrounds you. Every cell, every drop of fluid, every gentle valve and wall is working without pause, without complaint. There is no wasted motion, no rest, yet no strain. This system has been flowing since birth, and it will continue quietly and faithfully for as long as the body lives. The bloodstream is not only a highway, it is a messenger, a caretaker, a bridge between worlds. It brings warmth to the skin and nutrients to the muscles. It carries waste to be cleared and information to be shared. It responds to every change in the body's needs with grace and speed, and all of it begins and ends with the heart. You continue through the pulmonary artery, heading now toward the lungs. The path narrows once again as you approach the arterioles and then the capillaries of the lung tissue. These capillaries wrap around the tiny air sacs called alveoli, forming a lacework of exchange points. Here, the red blood cells press close to the air. Oxygen moves in. Carbon dioxide moves out. The transformation is gentle, invisible, and complete. You watch as red cells brighten with fresh oxygen, their color changing from deep crimson to a more vibrant red. They swell slightly with their new cargo. The plasma shifts in composition. The bloodstream becomes a river of renewal. From here, the oxygen-rich blood will return to the heart, this time entering the left atrium, then passing through the mitral valve into the powerful left ventricle. That will be the next stage of your journey. But for now, you rest in the quiet vessels of the lungs, surrounded by the breath of life. Your microsub drifts slowly, like a leaf caught in a gentle breeze. You feel the warmth of the body, the softness of the tissues, the peaceful hum of 1,000 tasks being carried out without effort. You are deep inside a living being, not as an intruder, but as a visitor, a silent observer on a voyage of wonder. This river flows without end, through arteries and veins, through tiny capillaries and grand vessels, through every organ and limb. It is a map written in motion, a language spoken without words, and you are learning to hear it. This is the river of life, and it carries you forward. Part 3. Breath of the Lungs. The river of blood continues its slow and steady course, and you now find yourself moving deeper into the delicate world of the lungs. The path narrows again as your microsub drifts through a final set of branching vessels, each smaller than the last, like streams dividing into rivulets, then droplets, then mist. You are no longer in the thick veins and arteries that pulse with power. Here, everything feels fragile and hushed, as though even a whisper might disturb the stillness. You are approaching the alveoli, the smallest air sacs in the lungs. There are millions of them, clustered like bunches of grapes, each one thin-walled and soft, barely more than a delicate bubble of tissue. The walls of these sacs are so thin, so fine, that the gases within them can slip through effortlessly. On one side there is the breath, freshly drawn in from the outside world. On the other, the blood flowing gently in the capillaries that surround each sac. This is the meeting place, the point of exchange, where life is nourished with every breath. Your vessel floats near one of these alveoli. The air within shimmers slightly, touched by the warmth of the body. It is rich with oxygen, taken in from the world above only moments ago. Around the alveolus, red blood cells crowd close, pressing themselves as near as they can. They have just arrived from their long journey through the body, heavy with carbon dioxide and ready to receive something new. Oxygen molecules drift across the membrane like tiny messengers. They slip from the air into the blood, finding their way into the red cells one by one. Each cell brightens as it fills, changing from a darker hue to a vibrant, healthy red. It is a gentle transformation, not rushed, not forced. The carbon dioxide that the cells carried is released into the alveolus in return, where it will be exhaled in the next breath. The exchange is complete, silent, beautiful. Your microsub follows this process, gliding slowly along the surface of the alveolus. The wall of the air sac is a living lacework of capillaries, each one threading its way around the soft curve of the bubble. The blood within them moves just fast enough to keep pace with the rhythm of breathing. In, then out. In, then out. The entire system dances to this quiet beat. Each breath taken above, perhaps unnoticed by the person to whom this body belongs, brings fresh oxygen to this sacred exchange. You pass from one alveolus to another, watching the same miracle repeat itself again and again. It never grows less beautiful. The breath of life, exchanged without sound, without struggle. The lungs are not only organs of function, they are temples of balance. Every cell in the body waits patiently for the gift they offer. And here, deep in the chest, that gift is prepared with each rise and fall of the ribs. As your vessel pulls away from the alveoli, you follow the newly oxygenated blood as it gathers again, moving into slightly larger vessels. These capillaries join to form venules, then veins, each carrying their bright cargo back toward the heart. The flow quickens slightly, but it remains gentle. You are now traveling through the pulmonary veins, the only veins in the body that carry oxygen-rich blood. They led straight back to the heart, to the chamber known as the left atrium. You approach the heart once more, but from a new direction. This time, the walls around you do not feel like chambers of return, but rooms of renewal. The left atrium welcomes the blood like a quiet library, allowing it to gather peacefully before continuing onward. The walls here are strong but smooth, pulsing with quiet purpose. The air is filled with the muffled sounds of muscle and motion, valves opening and closing, blood flowing through narrow gates. You drift with the current as it carries you through the mitral valve, a soft, petal-like structure that folds open as you approach. You pass into the left ventricle. This is the most powerful chamber of the heart, the true engine that sends blood out into the entire body. Its walls are thick and firm, coiled with muscle like a great sleeping animal. You can feel its strength even in stillness. It does not need to show force. Its presence alone is enough. The chamber fills with blood, and for a brief moment everything seems to hold its breath. Then comes the contraction. It is not violent. It is not sudden. It is deep and full, like the steady push of a giant hand. The blood is sent forward with purpose, not scattered or shaken, but guided with perfect control. You are swept along with it, moving now into the aorta, the great artery that carries oxygenated blood from the heart to the rest of the body. The aorta is enormous compared to the vessels you have seen. It curves upward at first, then arches gently before descending. From its sides, smaller arteries branch off, each one destined for a different region. Some go to the arms, others to the head, and still more lead downward to the legs and organs. The flow here is strong, steady, and smooth. There is no turbulence, no resistance, only direction, only motion. Your vessel takes a path toward the upper body, following one of the branching arteries. The walls here are firm but elastic, expanding slightly with each pulse, then returning to their shape. This elasticity keeps the blood moving evenly, without jolts or stops. The red cells are busy now, ready to deliver their oxygen to every tissue they pass. The plasma carries nutrients, hormones, and heat. Everything the body needs is on its way. As you drift deeper into the arterial system, you begin to pass smaller and smaller branches. The arteries divide into arterioles, then into capillaries once more. These are the vessels that reach into every muscle, every organ, every patch of skin. You are entering the vast network that serves the body in its quiet work of living. You pause near a capillary bed in a patch of skeletal muscle. The tissue is at rest now, not engaged in movement, but still alive with subtle shifts and readiness. The red blood cells begin to slow as they approach. They squeeze through the narrow capillaries, brushing close to the walls. Oxygen is released here, passed directly into the tissue. The muscle fibers absorb it without sound. In return, the blood takes on carbon dioxide once more, preparing for the long loop back to the lungs. It is a moment of exchange, simple and profound. And it is happening everywhere at once. In the brain, where thoughts are born. In the fingertips, where sensation meets the world. In the stomach, where digestion continues without effort. Every corner of the body is being touched by this journey, every cell visited, every need quietly answered. Your vessel lingers here, drifting near the site of exchange. The walls of the capillary are so close you can see the tissue beyond. Cells shimmer like tiny lanterns. Mitochondria flicker within them, converting oxygen into energy. Proteins fold and unfold. Molecules dance from one compartment to another. This is the microcosm of life, the unseen work that keeps everything moving, thinking, feeling, and breathing. Eventually, the blood gathers again. Now low in oxygen and rich with carbon dioxide, it begins its return trip. Capillaries join into venules, which grow into veins. The current slows slightly, not because the system is tired, but because it is thoughtful. The veins do not pulse with the strength of the arteries. Instead, they use valves and muscle to guide the blood back home. It is a quieter journey, but no less important. You follow the blood through one of these veins, moving steadily back toward the heart. The body is at peace, breathing, resting, dreaming. The lungs continue their work, drawing in air, releasing carbon dioxide. The heart continues its beat, patient and sure. And all the while, the bloodstream flows. This journey through the lungs and heart has shown you the beauty of balance, of rhythm, of quiet strength. The lungs do not shout. They whisper. They unfold and fold with each breath, always ready, always generous. The heart does not tremble. It moves with certainty, not needing to be seen to be felt. And the blood, silent and unseen, carries all the hope and need of the body in its gentle flow. You have traveled through chambers and valves, through capillaries and alveoli. You have witnessed the breath of life exchanged in sacred silence. And now, as your vessel begins to move again toward the outer body, you know that this river, this pulse, this breath, is not just the background of life, it is life itself. The journey continues, and you are ready to follow. Part 4. The Digestive Garden. The bloodstream carries you gently away from the lungs now. Your microsub drifts downstream, the current steady and sure as oxygen-rich blood flows through vessel after vessel. The journey is smooth, the pressure rhythmic. You follow the silent call of the body's design. Though the heart lies behind you, its pulse is still present in the movement of the blood, guiding you along hidden paths. You pass through the aorta again, traveling through yet another branch, this time heading downward toward the center of the body. Your destination is the digestive system, the quiet garden where food becomes life. As you move deeper into the abdomen, the vessels around you begin to branch and weave, forming a web of arteries that supply the organs of digestion. You pass through the celiac artery, then into smaller arterioles that lead toward the stomach, the liver, the pancreas, and the intestines. Each turn of the journey brings a shift in the texture of the walls, in the density of the flow, and in the purpose of the passage. Here, the blood is not only delivering oxygen, it is preparing to gather nutrients, drawn from the foods once chewed and swallowed, now transformed within the warm chambers of the digestive tract. You reach a small portal and exit the bloodstream, passing through the vessel wall into the tissues beyond. The change is subtle but immediate. The motion slows, the environment shifts. You are no longer in the silent tunnels of the vascular system. You are drifting into the rich and living terrain of the stomach. The stomach rises before you like a great, muscular chamber, its inner surface folded and ridged, lined with layers of moist tissue. The walls ripple slowly, massaging their contents with waves of movement known as peristalsis. You float past the muscular lining, watching as the stomach churns gently, breaking down food that arrived only minutes ago. What was once solid is now a thick, warm mixture called chyme, a blend of food, enzymes, and gastric juices. The scent in the air is not unpleasant. It is earthy and sour, like yeast and citrus and something faintly metallic. It is the scent of transformation. Tiny glands within the stomach walls release hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes. You watch them bubble and mix, softening proteins and turning starches into sugars. Pepsin begins its quiet work, snipping long chains of amino acids into smaller parts the body can absorb. Mucus coats the stomach lining, protecting it from the harsh environment it creates for the food it must dismantle. The stomach is both protector and destroyer, a guardian of balance. You move along the curve of the stomach, following the chyme as it is guided toward the pyloric sphincter, a firm but flexible ring of muscle that controls the passage into the small intestine. The sphincter pulses open, then closes again, allowing just a little of the mixture to pass at a time. This is not a hurried process. The stomach does not rush. It waits until the food is ready. Beyond the sphincter lies the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine. The space here is narrower, the walls lined with soft folds that increase surface area and slow the movement of the chyme. You drift forward into this new environment and feel the energy change. The stomach was about breakdown. Here, in the intestine, the focus is on absorption. Digestive juices from the pancreas and bile from the liver join the mixture. These fluids help dissolve fats, neutralize acids, and complete the digestion of proteins and carbohydrates. You see droplets of fat surrounded by bile salts, forming tiny spheres called micelles. Enzymes float in from nearby ducts, each one targeted, precise, designed to perform a specific task. Amylase breaks down starches. Lipase handles fats. Trypsin continues the work of protein digestion. The walls of the intestine are lined with villi, tiny finger-like projections that sway gently in the current. Each villus is covered with microvilli, creating a dense brush border where absorption occurs. You drift closer, passing between the waving structures. The surface area is immense. A space no larger than your hand on the outside contains the surface area of a tennis court inside. This design allows for maximum contact, maximum exchange. Inside each villus, tiny blood vessels and lymphatic capillaries wait patiently. Nutrients pass across the cell membranes: glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals, each drawn in with care and directed to its proper path. Some are carried away by the bloodstream. Others enter the lymph and begin a slower route. You follow some of these molecules as they move inward, watching them cross into the body, no longer part of the food but part of the person. You pause in the jejunum, the second part of the small intestine. Here, most of the absorption takes place. The chyme is thinner now, lighter in color and texture. The acids are gone, neutralized by bicarbonate. The enzymes have done their work. The nutrients have been harvested. What remains will continue onward toward the ileum, the final part of the small intestine, where absorption of vitamins and bile salts completes the digestive journey. From here, the material moves into the large intestine, also known as the colon. The environment changes again. The colon is wider and calmer. Its walls move slowly, gathering water and electrolytes from the remnants of the meal. Beneficial bacteria live here, trillions of them, forming a rich and diverse ecosystem. They break down fibers, produce vitamins like K and B12, and help protect the body from harmful invaders. You drift past colonies of these microbes, each one part of a vast, invisible community. The large intestine is not a place of hunger or haste. It is the final stage of preparation. Water is reabsorbed. Waste is compacted. And in time, what the body cannot use is gently moved toward the rectum, to be released from the body in a quiet act of completion. But this part of the journey is not yours to follow. Instead, you move away from the colon toward two nearby organs that play quiet but powerful roles in digestion: the liver and the pancreas. You begin with the liver. The liver is the largest internal organ, a dense, reddish-brown structure that hums with activity. It receives blood from two sources. The hepatic artery brings oxygen-rich blood from the heart, while the portal vein delivers nutrient-rich blood from the intestines. Your microsub enters through the portal vein, flowing slowly into a maze of sinusoids where the blood is filtered and adjusted. The cells here, hepatocytes, are busy transforming nutrients, storing energy, neutralizing toxins, and synthesizing proteins. You watch as the liver stores excess glucose as glycogen. It converts ammonia into urea. It assembles cholesterol. It breaks down alcohol. It balances hormones. The liver does not pause. It works quietly, all day and all night, unseen and underappreciated. Yet without it, the body could not remain in balance. Next, you travel to the pancreas, a long, flat gland nestled behind the stomach. Here, cells called acini produce the enzymes that flow into the duodenum. You see them being packaged, moved, and released through tiny ducts. Deeper in the pancreas, clusters of cells known as the islets of Langerhans release hormones into the blood: insulin, glucagon. They do not work alone. They are part of a dance, a feedback loop, ensuring that blood sugar remains steady, that energy is available, and that cells across the body are nourished. From the pancreas, you return to the bloodstream. The microsub moves with quiet ease, slipping through cell walls and into the current once more. The blood here is full of newly absorbed nutrients, ready to be delivered to muscles, nerves, bones, and skin. You have seen how the body transforms a simple meal into fuel, into strength, into thought. As you rise again into the bloodstream, the digestive system fades behind you. But you carry its story now. You have seen the stomach churn and the intestines absorb. You have watched enzymes unlock the potential of food. You have witnessed the cooperation of organs, the guidance of hormones, the silent labor of microbes. The digestive system is not just a series of tubes. It is a living garden where the raw materials of the world are transformed into the energy of life. The journey continues. The blood carries you onward, ever forward toward new systems, new places, new rhythms. And through it all, the body breathes and flows and balances, keeping its quiet promises. You are part of that balance now, and the path ahead is waiting. Part 5: The Silent Spark. You are drifting upward now. The flow of blood carries you gently, moving once more through branching vessels, rising toward the center of thought and memory. The current follows a new course, not to the limbs or the lungs, but to the crown of the body, the brain. Around you, the bloodstream is thick with oxygen and nutrients, freshly gathered from the lungs and the garden of digestion. The body has prepared its finest offerings for this destination. It knows how important this place is, how delicate and demanding its rhythms can be. You are approaching the central command, the keeper of stories, the house of dreams. As you rise through the neck, the vessels become narrower. You pass through the carotid artery, the great passage that brings blood to the head. The walls here are strong and elastic, pulsing gently with every heartbeat. The journey is quiet. There is no rush. The brain does not crave sudden floods. It needs consistency, calm, and precision. You feel the change as you near the skull. The space around you cools slightly. The tissues become denser. And then, without warning, the darkness parts. You pass into a new kind of space. You are now within the brain's gentle sanctuary. The vessels here are finer, more intricate. You travel through a lacework of capillaries so delicate that red blood cells must pass in single file. These vessels weave between folds of tissue, reaching every corner, every crevice. The environment is hushed. There is movement all around, but it does not stir the air. It flickers silently, like candlelight behind a veil. Here, in the brain, the blood serves not just to nourish, but to maintain balance. The blood-brain barrier, a soft but precise filter, controls what enters and what stays behind. It is a gatekeeper of extraordinary subtlety. Glucose and oxygen pass through freely, welcomed and necessary, but larger molecules and anything foreign or uncertain are held back. The brain guards itself carefully. It must. The signals it produces are so precise, so fragile, that even the smallest disruption can echo through the whole body. Your vessel hovers just beyond a thin membrane. You do not need to pass through it to see what lies beyond. You are not here to interfere. You are here to observe. You begin near the cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the brain. This folded sheet of gray tissue stretches like a soft, rippling blanket across the curved surface of the cerebrum. Its folds increase surface area, allowing more room for neurons, tiny cells that carry the signals of thought, movement, and sensation. You drift gently along one fold, then into the groove beside it. Neurons extend their arms across these spaces, forming networks of communication that shimmer faintly with activity. Each neuron is shaped like a star, a central body with many branching arms, some reaching out, others receiving. When a signal travels through a neuron, it is not like a flash of lightning. It is more like the falling of a single snowflake onto a still pond. The change is quiet, but complete. An electrical impulse travels down the axon, the long arm of the neuron, like a wave across still water. When it reaches the end, it arrives at the synapse, the tiny gap between cells. There, it is transformed into a chemical signal. Neurotransmitters are released, drift across the gap, and are received by the next neuron. The signal continues. This is the silent language of thought. Not words, not images, just energy and chemistry, perfectly timed. A single thought can involve millions of these signals. A memory, a smell, the decision to lift a hand all begin with this soft spark. You drift lower into the brain now, toward the limbic system, the deeper structures that shape emotion and memory. You pass the hippocampus, a curved structure that glows faintly, always active, always listening. This is where experiences are sorted and stored, where moments become memories. The cells hear fire and patterns, linking sights and smells and feelings together into a story. Some memories fade quickly. Others remain for a lifetime. The hippocampus does not choose which will last. It simply records quietly and continuously. Near the hippocampus lies the amygdala, a small almond-shaped cluster of cells. It pulses gently with feeling: fear, joy, surprise, sadness. The amygdala does not speak in sentences. It reacts, sometimes before you are even aware. It keeps you safe. It reminds you of what matters. It helps color your memories with emotion, ensuring that what is important is not forgotten. Above you, the thalamus rests like a round stone at the center of a still pond. It is the brain's relay station, passing signals between the senses and the cortex. Sight, sound, touch, and taste all pass through here. It listens to every input and decides where to send it. It is quiet, but it is never still. Like a conductor in a silent symphony, it guides the music of experience with invisible gestures. You pass by the hypothalamus just below. It is small but essential. It monitors temperature, hunger, thirst, and hormone levels. It keeps the body in balance. You feel the warmth here, the sense of steady attention. The hypothalamus speaks to the rest of the body through the pituitary gland, which rests beneath it. Together they coordinate the release of hormones, affecting growth, metabolism, reproduction, and stress. They do not command. They whisper. They suggest. And the body listens. Farther back, you approach the cerebellum. It is tucked beneath the cerebrum, curled like a seashell. The tissue here is dense, layered, and full of movement. The cerebellum coordinates motion. It keeps balance. It remembers patterns of movement: walking, reaching, speaking, even blinking. It does not decide what you do, but it makes sure the doing is smooth, graceful, and quiet. At the base of the brainstem extends downward. It connects the brain to the spinal cord. You drift slowly around it, watching as signals pass through. The brainstem controls breathing, heart rate, swallowing, and sleep. It is the most ancient part of the brain. It has no words. It has no need for thought. It simply knows how to keep the body alive. You follow the signal now as it moves down the spinal cord. The signal begins in the cortex, then travels through the brainstem, down into the spine, and out through branching nerves. You glide beside it, watching as it divides and spreads. One branch leads to the muscles of the arm, another to the skin of the leg. Each nerve carries its signal with precision. Some bring commands from the brain, others bring information back: heat, pressure, pain, and pleasure. The nervous system is not a one-way road. It is a web, constantly sending and receiving. As you drift lower into the spinal cord, you see how the nerves branch off at every level, like roots from a tree. They pass through the vertebrae, cushioned by fluid and protected by bone. Each pair of nerves emerges through a small opening, finding its way to the organs, muscles, and skin of the body. The spinal cord does not need to think. It reacts. It holds patterns. It can respond without waiting for the brain. These reflexes protect the body. They act faster than thought. Outside the spinal column, the nerves continue. Some are thick, like ropes. Others are fine, like threads. They wind their way through muscle and fat, through joints and ligaments, through every corner of the body. They branch and rebranch, dividing again and again until every cell that needs to be touched is touched. You follow a motor nerve now, heading toward a muscle fiber. The signal arrives and crosses a tiny gap at the neuromuscular junction. The muscle responds. It tightens. A finger moves. A foot lifts. A breath is taken. The action is small, but the coordination is vast. The nerve, the signal, the muscle, the intention, all perfectly aligned. You follow a sensory nerve in return. It carries information from the skin of the forearm. A shift in air temperature, a light touch, a tingling of heat. The signal moves quickly, passing through the nerves to the spine, up to the brain, then to the thalamus, and finally to the cortex. The brain receives it, interprets it, and the mind becomes aware. You are seeing now how the body speaks to itself, how it listens, how it learns. The nervous system is not separate from the rest. It is woven into every tissue, every organ, every cell. It hears the heartbeat. It tracks the breath. It feels the stomach's fullness and the lungs' rhythm. It adjusts, rebalances, and prepares. Always. Endlessly. The nervous system does not sleep, even when the mind does. It watches over the breath. It calms the heartbeat. It sorts memories. It repairs. It dreams. You drift upward again, back toward the brain, where a single neuron fires. Perhaps a memory. Perhaps the seed of a dream. Perhaps nothing at all. The silent spark passes through the synapse and moves on. And so do you. The journey continues, and the path ahead is waiting. Part 6. The Watchers Within. You are adrift once more, held steady in the stream of the bloodstream, but this time your focus is not the Red River itself. It is what moves among it, what travels through it, not to deliver, but to guard. Not to nourish, but to protect. These are the quiet sentinels of the body. The Watchers, the immune system. You are about to follow their path. The bloodstream is calm. Oxygenated and full of nutrients, it flows smoothly through the arteries and branches into finer arterioles. All around, red blood cells pass like soft coins, their rounded shapes spinning gently as they move along. But among them, fewer in number, yet never still, drift the white blood cells. They move differently. While red cells flow with the current, white cells seem to resist it. They pause. They roll along the vessel walls. Sometimes they reach out with tiny arms called pseudopodia, sensing the space ahead, as if listening to something unheard. They do not glow. They do not shine. But there is something purposeful about them, something alert and always waiting. You begin by following a neutrophil, the most common type of white blood cell. Its surface is lumpy, its nucleus divided into lobes like a string of beads. It moves with confidence, but not speed. This is not a cell in panic. It is a scout, a first responder. It rolls gently along the endothelial wall, where cells line the interior of the blood vessel like smooth tiles. The neutrophil pauses. It reaches out. Something in the tissue nearby has changed. A signal has been received, a chemical whisper from a cell under distress. Not a scream. Just a marker. A quiet flag placed by damaged tissue or a foreign invader. The neutrophil prepares to act. You follow closely as it performs diapedesis, slipping between the cells of the vessel wall, exiting the bloodstream and entering the interstitial space, the fluid-filled gap between cells. It does not tear or break through. It negotiates. The vessel wall responds, opening slightly, allowing it to pass. Once outside, the neutrophil begins chemotaxis, moving through the tissue toward the source of the signal. The environment here is softer, more like a meadow than a tunnel. Cells float in gentle fluid, nourished and stable. Collagen fibers weave between them, giving shape and structure. The neutrophil weaves through them like a ghost. It follows gradients of chemicals, cytokines, and interleukins that drift invisibly through the tissue. These are the messages the immune system uses to speak. At the sight of trouble, you see what drew it in. A single bacterium, foreign and unfamiliar, has entered the tissue. It is not dangerous by itself, but it does not belong. It has been tagged already, marked by an earlier responder, perhaps an antibody or a complement protein. The neutrophil recognizes the tag. Without hesitation, it envelops the invader in a slow, graceful motion. The bacterium is drawn inside, into a vesicle. Enzymes are released. The invader is broken down and dissolved. There is no sound, no anger. Only balance restored. The neutrophil rests for a moment, then moves on. It will do this many times in its short life. Most neutrophils live only a day or two. They do not need more. Their work is not to remember, but to act. You drift onward now, deeper into the immune system's architecture. Beyond the tissues and into the lymphatic system, a network of vessels and nodes that mirrors the circulatory system but flows with a quieter purpose. You enter a lymph capillary. The fluid here, called lymph, is pale and clear. It carries proteins, waste, and stray cells from the tissues back toward the heart, but it also carries information, traces of what the immune system has seen. As you move through the lymphatic vessel, you pass valves that guide the flow gently toward the lymph nodes. These nodes are small, bean-shaped structures nestled throughout the body, in the neck, under the arms, near the groin, deep in the chest and abdomen. You are approaching one now. Inside the lymph node, the environment shifts again. It is dense, organized, a network of compartments lined with immune cells, waiting and watching. You pass into the outer cortex where B cells gather in follicles, each one trained to recognize a specific shape, a specific signature. The diversity is enormous. Each B cell waits for its match, often for months or years. If it never appears, it dies quietly. But if the right antigen arrives, if the right pattern is seen, the cell springs to life. You move deeper into the paracortex, where T cells wait. These cells are more selective, trained in the thymus to recognize the body's own cells while still responding to threats. The T cells here are varied. Some are helpers, coordinating the immune response. Others are killers, seeking out infected cells and ending them with gentle precision. You watch as a dendritic cell enters the node, carrying a sample of an invader it encountered elsewhere. It presents fragments of the intruder on its surface, like a display. The T cells gather. Some ignore it. Others pause. One finds a match. Its receptors bind to the fragment. It is activated. This is the beginning of an adaptive immune response. The T cell will multiply, creating many copies of itself. Some will leave the node, travel through the blood, and seek out the same invader. Others will stay behind, becoming memory cells. They will remember this moment for years, maybe forever. If the same threat appears again, the body will be ready. You leave the lymph node now, drifting with the lymph as it flows into larger vessels and finally returns to the bloodstream near the heart. You pass immune cells along the way, monocytes that will become macrophages, natural killer cells that patrol for signs of viral infection, eosinophils and basophils that help manage allergic reactions and parasites. Each cell has a role. Each one knows when to act and when to wait. There is no single leader here. The system is built from relationships, from signals exchanged in silence. You follow a B cell now, newly activated. It floats through the blood to the bone marrow, where it will transform into a plasma cell. Here, in the soft halls of the marrow, it will produce antibodies, Y-shaped proteins that drift through the blood, binding to specific targets. They do not kill, they mark. They identify. They flag threats so others can respond. The antibodies spread through the body like scouts, always watching, always ready. Nearby, you see memory B cells forming. These will remain long after the infection is gone, quiet and unnoticed. But if the same threat returns, they will respond faster, stronger, and with more precision. This is how the body learns, not just from thought, but from experience held in the blood. The immune system is everywhere. In the skin, where cells watch for broken barriers. In the gut, where bacteria live in harmony but are kept in balance. In the lungs, where inhaled particles are checked and, if needed, removed. It is not a single thing. It is a presence, a readiness. You pass through the spleen, another organ of defense. It filters the blood, removes old red cells, stores white cells. You watch as macrophages roam through its red pulp, engulfing what no longer serves. In the white pulp, lymphocytes wait, just as they did in the nodes. The spleen does not boast. It does not rest. It does not need to. You begin to understand the rhythm of the immune system. It does not fight unless it must. Its true goal is not destruction, but harmony. It seeks to recognize what is self and what is not, to respond only when necessary, to remember and to forget. And yet, sometimes it errs. Sometimes it sees danger where there is none. An allergy, an autoimmune flare, a moment of confusion. Even this system, so elegant, so ancient, is not infallible. But still it learns. Still it adjusts. You drift quietly beside a white blood cell, watching it move along a vessel wall. It pauses, reaches, listens, then moves on. It will do this forever, until it is replaced by another just as alert, just as quiet. This is not a war. It is a vigil, a guardianship. The watchers within do not crave victory. They crave peace, and they work, always and without rest, to maintain it. You are part of that peace now, and the path ahead is waiting. Part 7. The Inner Alchemist. You are drifting now through a slower part of the bloodstream. The pulse of the heart is still behind you, steady as always, but the currents here have softened. There is a weight in the air, not of heaviness, but of depth. You are being drawn inward, not toward a place of motion or muscle, but toward one of thoughtless labor. Tireless and unseen, this is the liver, and it waits for you like a quiet harbor tucked behind the rush of rivers. From the stomach and intestines, the blood brings nutrients, sugars, amino acids, lipids, and toxins. All of it flows through the portal vein, a wide, branching vessel that leads directly into the liver. This blood is unlike that which flows from the lungs or limbs. It is rich with the raw materials of digestion, a mixture of the useful and the dangerous, the nourishing and the impure, and the liver welcomes it all without judgment. You enter the liver not through one door, but through many. The vessel you follow splits into smaller and smaller branches, each one leading to a functional unit called a lobule. The architecture is orderly but organic, shaped not by human hands, but by need and purpose. These lobules are hexagonal in shape, each one a quiet workshop of transformation. At the center of each lobule is a central vein, and radiating out from it are plates of hepatocytes, liver cells interwoven with narrow channels of blood and bile. The hepatocytes are the alchemists of the body. Their work is not dramatic. It is constant. You glide slowly past rows of these cells, each one carrying out dozens of chemical processes at once. You begin to understand that the liver is not just one organ. It is many organs in one. A filter, a warehouse, a laboratory, a refinery, a sentinel. You watch as a molecule of glucose arrives from the intestine. It is not immediately sent to the body. First, it is examined. Then, depending on the body's needs, it may be stored as glycogen, a form of energy held in reserve. If energy is required elsewhere, it will be released back into the blood. This storage and release is not random. It is finely tuned by hormones, insulin and glucagon messages from the pancreas that whisper to the liver what to do. Next comes a wave of amino acids. These are the broken down parts of protein, useful for building muscle, repairing tissue, and creating enzymes. But if there are more than needed, the liver transforms them. It removes their nitrogen, a process called deamination, and converts the leftovers into energy or stores them for later use. The nitrogen is not wasted either. It is converted into urea, a less toxic substance, and sent to the kidneys for removal. Every part is accounted for. Nothing is left unchecked. You drift past the stream of lipids, fatty molecules from a recent meal. They arrive wrapped in lipoproteins, little carriers built by the intestine to transport fat in water. The liver receives them, breaks them down, stores some, and reshapes others into cholesterol or new fatty acids. It also sends some to the bloodstream to feed muscles and organs. It knows where to send each drop. It does not guess. It simply knows. There are toxins too. A trace of alcohol, a chemical additive, the remnants of medicine. The liver does not react with fear. It does not halt its work. Instead, it begins a quiet process of detoxification. Phase 1 enzymes transform these molecules, changing their shape slightly. Phase 2 enzymes bind them to other molecules, glucuronic acid, sulfate, or glutathione, making them easier to eliminate. The transformed toxins are then sent to the bile or the blood to be excreted in the feces or urine. The process is slow, patient, effective. You drift with the bile now, a greenish fluid created by the liver not for detoxification, but for digestion. It is sent into narrow canals that lead to the bile ducts, and from there into the gallbladder, where it is stored until needed. When food reaches the small intestine, bile is released to emulsify fats, making them easier to absorb. It is a quiet gift, prepared in advance. Throughout the liver you see Kupffer cells, special immune sentinels embedded in the sinusoids. They capture bacteria, debris, and worn-out red blood cells. They do not patrol like white blood cells. They remain in place, patient, and vigilant. The liver is exposed to more foreign material than any other internal organ. It does not react. It responds. With calm, with wisdom. You move slowly through a sinusoid, the capillary of the liver, wider than those in the brain, more open to exchange. Blood flows here not in a line, but in a gentle tide, washing over the hepatocytes. Every second, over a liter of blood passes through the liver. It is examined, adjusted, purified. You begin to sense the tempo of this place. It is not the staccato rhythm of the heart or the tidal breath of the lungs. It is more like a tide, a slow rising and falling of concentration and need. The liver listens to the whole body through the blood. It senses hormone levels, nutrient supply, chemical imbalance. And it answers not with messages or movement, but with chemistry. There is no noise here, no announcement of tasks completed. The liver does not require recognition. It exists in the background, making life possible. Its silence is not emptiness, it is steadiness. You rise now toward the outer surface of the liver, where the blood flows outward again, refined and reordered. The hepatic vein carries this blood to the inferior vena cava, and from there it returns to the heart. The nutrients will be sent throughout the body. The toxins will be filtered again by the kidneys. The signals shaped here will inform every other system. You pause before leaving, hovering over a field of hepatocytes, still watching them work. A molecule of bilirubin, the yellow pigment from the breakdown of red blood cells, is being conjugated, prepared for elimination. Another molecule of ammonia is transformed into urea. A batch of vitamins is being stored, A, D, 12, kept safely until needed. Proteins for the blood are being synthesized, albumin to maintain pressure, clotting factors to stop bleeding. There is elegance in this repetition, a beauty in its unceasing motion. Nothing flashy, nothing sudden, just a river of transformation, flowing forever behind the scenes. You return now to the bloodstream, changed by what you have seen. The liver is not the warrior of the body. It is the wise one, the elder, the quiet architect. It holds memory not in thoughts, but in balance. It is the alchemist, turning what is harmful into safety, what is chaotic into order. You drift with the current once more. The blood moves slowly at first, then gains strength as it leaves the liver behind. The nutrients it now carries are pure, measured, and distributed as needed. The work of the liver is complete for this moment, but it is never finished. The journey continues, and the path ahead is waiting. Part 8. The Quiet Frame. You are drifting again. The pulse of the blood carries you away from the soft, dense warmth of the liver and into broader pathways. The current is steady, and the light that filters through the vessel walls is gentle. The silence here is different. It is not the silence of stillness, but the quiet of strength. You are being drawn now not to the organs of thought or transformation, but to the foundation beneath them all. You are headed toward the bones. From the outside, the skeleton may seem simple, rigid, passive. A framework of ivory-colored rods and plates designed only to hold the body upright and give shape to the form. But as you draw closer, you begin to understand that bones are not quiet because they are dead. They are quiet because they are focused. Inside them lies motion. Inside them lies life. Your microsub glides through a branching vessel, one that dips downward into the depths of the femur, the long bone of the thigh. It is one of the strongest bones in the body, built to bear the weight of movement, of standing, walking, and running. Yet here, in its hollow center, lies something soft, something essential. Bone marrow. You pass through the blood vessel wall and enter the inner chamber of the bone. What you find here is not hollow emptiness. It is warmth. A velvet softness made of living tissue, woven with capillaries and laced with cells. This is red marrow, and it hums with quiet activity. The marrow is a garden of creation. This is where blood begins. You float slowly through its corridors. All around you are clusters of stem cells, primitive, undifferentiated cells with the power to become many things. Hematopoietic stem cells divide and give rise to all the components of blood. Some will become red blood cells, disc-shaped and flexible, carrying oxygen through the body. Others will become white blood cells, guardians of the immune system. Still others will form platelets, small fragments that help blood clot and wounds heal. You watch one of these cells divide. Slowly, carefully, it begins to change. Its outer surface thickens. Its inner machinery shifts. It is becoming a red blood cell, discarding its nucleus, shaping itself for a life of motion and oxygen. Nearby, another stem cell divides, forming the early shape of a lymphocyte, a white blood cell that will travel to the lymph nodes and learn how to recognize what belongs and what does not. This hidden workshop never stops. It does not tire. It does not wait for commands. The marrow knows what the body needs. If there is blood loss, it produces more red cells. If there is infection, it shifts toward white. It adjusts with gentle precision. But marrow is not the only life within the bone. You drift into the hard outer tissue, called compact bone. It is not solid, as it appears from afar. It is dense, yes, but woven with tunnels and chambers. Blood vessels run through channels called haversian canals, bringing nutrients and oxygen to bone cells called osteocytes. The osteocytes rest in tiny spaces called lacunae, arranged in concentric rings around each canal, like ripples spreading outward from a stone dropped in a still pond. Tiny channels connect them, canaliculi, through which they send signals and share resources. The cells speak in molecules, sharing information about pressure, stress, and strain. You follow a signal now, passing from one osteocyte to another. It is not a message of pain or alarm. It is more like a check-in. The bone has been used today, walked on, pressed against the ground. It senses the force. It records the shape. The osteocytes report these changes to cells deeper in the tissue, and decisions are made. Bone is not static. It is not the dead stone we often imagine. It is dynamic, adaptive, living. Nearby, you see the twin forces that shape the skeleton, osteoblasts and osteoclasts, the builders and the sculptors. The osteoblasts lay down new bone matrix, filling in where strength is needed, thickening the walls, healing the cracks. The osteoclasts in turn dissolve old bone, recycling calcium and phosphorus into the bloodstream, thinning places where the load has shifted. They do not compete. They coordinate. The balance between them changes with time. In youth, the builders are stronger, growing the skeleton, making it long and thick. In adulthood, they work together, remodeling, maintaining strength. In age, the sculptors begin to dominate. The walls thin, the frame lightens, but still it adapts. You rise now into the spongy bone, also called cancellous bone. Its lattice-like structure is strong but light, like the inside of a bird's wing. It is filled with red marrow and threaded with blood vessels. The patterns here shift based on movement. Where muscles pull, the bone responds. Where stress is applied, strength is added. It is a silent conversation between form and function. You drift through the pelvis, where marrow is rich and abundant. Then into the ribs, which protect the soft organs beneath. You pass through the sternum, then the vertebrae, stacked like carved stones along the spine. Each bone shaped precisely, each one connected to the next by ligaments and cartilage, flexible but firm. The skeleton is not a cage, it is scaffolding, a stage on which the soft tissues perform. Muscles anchored to bones by tendons. They pull and the bones move, but they do not move alone. Joints guide them. Cartilage cushions them. Synovial fluid smooths the motion. You pass through the knee, where femur meets tibia, where ligaments crisscross like ropes around a mass. You see the meniscus, a pad of cartilage that absorbs shock. You drift around the patella, the kneecap, suspended like a stone in a sling. There is no grinding, no scraping. Only movement, lubricated and silent. Even in a joint that bends 1,000 times a day, the silence is preserved. You rise again through the humerus, the upper arm bone, into the shoulder, where the ball rests in the shallow socket of the scapula. The range of motion here is greater, the structure more delicate. Ligaments and tendons form a tight web, keeping the joint stable while allowing freedom. You hover briefly near a growth plate, still active in a young person's bone. This is where length is added, where cartilage slowly turns to bone as the body grows. Hormones guide the process. Growth hormone, thyroid hormone, sex hormones during puberty. The signals are precise, timed with care. Eventually, the growth plate will close. The bone will stop lengthening, but it will not stop changing. You float along the collarbone, across the ribcage, and toward the spine once more. Here, you descend the vertebral column, passing through the thoracic vertebrae, which anchor the ribs, then the lumbar vertebrae, thick and strong to carry the weight of the body. You pass the sacrum, fused and solid, then the coccyx, the tailbone, small but present. Each part has purpose. Each part tells the story of movement and stillness, of upright posture and balance. The skeleton is not just support. It is protection. The skull shields the brain. The ribs shield the lungs and heart. The pelvis protects the organs of reproduction and elimination. And within all of this, the bone still listens, still adjusts, still gives birth to blood. You return now to the marrow. Its soft walls pulse with life. The cycle continues. A stem cell divides. A new red blood cell begins to take shape. You have seen how the body's frame is not a still sculpture, but a living cathedral, where every arch is active, every beam responsive. The bones do not ask to be seen. They do not speak. But they are always there, holding everything together. You drift outward now, rising back into the bloodstream that surrounds the bones. Calcium and phosphorus move in quiet balance, released when needed, stored when in excess. The hormones that manage them, parathyroid hormone, calcitonin, vitamin D, whisper through the blood, guiding the sculptors and the builders. You have traveled through strength, but you have found quiet. You have passed through stillness, but you have seen motion. You have floated through what seems like silence and discovered a hidden song. The skeleton holds it all, not with force but with care, and still the journey continues, and the path ahead is waiting. Part 9. Beneath the Living Skin. You are moving upward now, rising slowly through the bloodstream once more, gently carried toward the surface. The deeper systems of the body lie behind you. You have visited the silent work of the liver, the strength of the bones, the breath of the lungs, the currents of the bloodstream. And now the journey draws near to the outermost layer of life. Not a shell, not a wall, but something softer, something alive. You are approaching the skin. From within, the body does not separate one system from another. There is no line drawn between inside and outside. Everything is connected by tissues and messages, by vessels and currents. But now, as you rise toward the edge of the body, you begin to feel a shift. The air becomes cooler. The tissue changes texture. The sense of openness narrows. You are leaving the deep and entering the barrier, the protector, the skin. The vessel you are in glides gently through narrow capillaries that curve upward toward the dermis, the inner layer of the skin. These capillaries are slow and close to the surface. You move more slowly now. The heartbeat is more distant. The blood is cooler here. Still rich with oxygen and messages, but less hurried. You pause within a shallow bend and begin to look around. The dermis surrounds you like a dense forest, woven with fibers and cells. It is thicker than you expected. You can feel its quiet strength even before you understand its structure. Collagen and elastin twist through it like braided ropes, giving it resilience, allowing it to stretch and return. This is what gives skin its softness, its ability to fold and move with the body. You pass through bundles of fibroblasts, the cells that produce the dermal fibers. They do not sleep. They are always repairing, always responding. When the skin is cut or bruised, it is they who rebuild the matrix. It is they who guide healing. You watch as one fibroblast pulls together strands of collagen, laying them down in a careful arrangement. Not rushed, not random, purposeful and calm. Among the fibers you see blood vessels, sweat glands, and nerves, all nestled within this soft underlayer. You drift past the sebaceous gland, a small pouch that releases sebum, an oily substance that keeps the skin moist and flexible. The sebum flows slowly along a tiny duct, rising toward a hair follicle nearby. You follow it upward, rising toward the base of a single hair. The follicle curves into the dermis like a cup, surrounding the root of the hair shaft. The hair itself is made of keratin, dead protein formed in concentric layers pushed outward as the cells within the follicle divide and grow. You watch as the hair thickens slightly, then rises out of the follicle, guided upward through the dermis and into the epidermis. Here, near the base of the follicle, you see a small band of muscle, the erector pili. It is still now, relaxed. But when triggered by cold or fear, it contracts, pulling the hair upright. This is what causes goosebumps. A simple motion driven by ancient instincts. A tiny reminder of something deep in the past. You rise with the hair through the dermis and enter the epidermis, the outermost layer of the skin. This layer is thinner, but still layered in its own quiet way. It is made not of nerves or blood vessels, but of keratinocyte cells filled with keratin, tightly packed and slowly moving upward. At the base, they are alive and growing, dividing and shifting. As they rise, they begin to change, losing their nuclei, flattening out, becoming part of the barrier. You drift through this slow-moving crowd of cells, watching as each one transforms. They are not hurried. Their journey from birth to death takes nearly a month. Along the way, they protect the body from water loss, from microbes, from harm. They carry pigments produced by melanocytes which give skin its color and help absorb ultraviolet light from the sun. You pause near a melanocyte now. It stretches its long arms between neighboring keratinocytes, transferring pigment-filled granules called melanosomes. These tiny capsules move from cell to cell, forming a protective umbrella over the nuclei, shielding the DNA inside. Skin is not passive. It defends. It remembers the sun and learns from it. The outermost part of the epidermis is called the stratum corneum. It is made entirely of dead cells, flattened and dry, but still bound together by lipids that prevent water from escaping and invaders from entering. You drift just beneath this layer. Above you lies the air, the world beyond. The place where light touches and wind brushes past. And yet, even here, the skin is not lifeless. Even this outer shield is part of the body's language. It sheds, it renews, it reacts. When broken, it bleeds. When burned, it blisters. When touched, it responds. You move sideways now, not deeper but across. Through the dermis, following the path of a nerve fiber as it winds toward a touch receptor. The nerve ends in a bulb-shaped structure called a Meissner's corpuscle, nestled close beneath the surface of the skin, especially abundant in the fingertips and lips. It is tuned to light touch, to texture, to subtle shifts in pressure. You watch as the structure responds. A breeze, perhaps. A brush of fabric. The nerve fiber within the corpuscle changes its electrical state. A signal begins, moves along the nerve, travels to the spine, then up to the brain. The touch is noticed. The mind awakens. Even a whisper of sensation is heard. Nearby, you see Pacinian corpuscles, larger, deeper structures tuned to vibration and pressure. They respond to firmer contact. A step, a grip, a pulse. The nerves are wrapped in concentric layers like the rings of a tree. When pressure deforms these layers, the nerve fires. You drift along one of the layers now. It is firm but elastic, designed to respond and then recover. Farther below, in the deeper dermis, you find thermoreceptors, nerve endings that respond to temperature. Some sense warmth. Others detect cold. Together, they help the body stay balanced. When heat is sensed, the sweat glands open. When cold arrives, blood vessels constrict. The skin is not a wall. It is a thermostat. You pass a sweat gland now. It spirals through the dermis, ending in a pore on the surface. Sweat flows upward through this narrow tube, carrying water and salts, cooling the skin as it evaporates. The sweat gland responds not only to temperature, but also to emotion. It can be activated by stress, by fear, by excitement. The body does not separate the physical and the emotional. It feels them both through the skin. You rise again, to the edge of the stratum corneum, the final boundary before the outside world. You pause here, at the edge of self. The air presses lightly on the skin. Light touches it, dust settles, water slides away. All of it filtered, all of it felt. This surface has known heat and cold, rain and wind, pressure and softness. It is marked with scars and freckles, with patterns unique to the life it has lived. It is alive with sensation and memory. You begin to drift downward once more, tracing the path of a signal from a single touch. The message moves into the dermis, then joins a nerve, then follows the long road to the spine. You see how quickly it travels. But it is not harsh, not loud, just fast and sure. The skin does not speak in words, but it tells you when something is near, when something is wrong, when something is soothing. It responds to warmth and pain, to joy and fear. It holds us together and connects us to everything we touch. You return now to the blood vessels in the dermis. Oxygen flows out. Carbon dioxide returns. Heat is exchanged. Water passes through. Hormones bind to receptors. White cells patrol. The skin is not an afterthought. It is a living organ, the largest in the body. And it is always working. You have seen the strength of bone, the depth of the liver, the rhythm of the heart. And now you have seen the quiet of the skin, not blank or featureless, but rich with presence. Soft, protective, sensing, always aware, always renewing. You float in the shallows of the bloodstream, just beneath the surface. And though the world above may seem far, the skin is the bridge. Between inside and out, between you and everything else. The journey continues, and the path ahead is waiting. Part 10: The Whispering Currents. You drift now through the stillness of the bloodstream, deeper than before, slower than before. There is no rush in this moment, no urgency in your motion. The cells that float beside you move with quiet purpose, gliding through the wide vessels of the body like boats in a tranquil river. And woven into this gentle stream, unseen but always present, are signals, messages, instructions, invisible guides that keep the body in balance. You are entering the world of the endocrine system. It is not a single place. It is not a network of ducts or nerves or walls. It is a system without wires or wheels, without levers or hinges. And yet it controls more than most. It whispers to every cell in the body, guiding decisions, adjusting rhythms, correcting imbalances, and shaping time itself. The hormones that make up the endocrine system are not loud. They do not flash or force. They drift, carried by the blood, reaching their destination without pushing. They know where to go because the cells they affect are waiting for them, listening for them, ready to respond. You are traveling now toward one of the first great centers of endocrine control, the hypothalamus. It rests near the center of the brain, just above the brainstem, surrounded by the gentle curves of the limbic system. You've been near here before, when thoughts and memories were unfolding around you. But the hypothalamus works in a different way. It watches the world within. It feels temperature and hunger. It senses hormone levels. It reads the signals in the blood and decides what should change. The hypothalamus is not isolated. It sends its messages through another gland, the pituitary, which rests just beneath it like a pearl hanging on a thread. The pituitary is often called the master gland, and you begin to see why. You hover near the gland now, a small, soft structure tucked into a protective hollow of bone called the sella turcica. It is no larger than a pea, yet it controls so much. The hypothalamus speaks to it with releasing hormones, tiny droplets of instruction that tell the pituitary what to release, when to act, how to guide the rest of the body. The pituitary responds, slowly, carefully. It sends out growth hormone, encouraging bones and muscles to expand. It releases thyroid-stimulating hormone, telling the thyroid to increase the body's energy. It sends out ACTH, which signals the adrenal glands to help the body adapt to stress. Each hormone is a message written in chemistry. Each one travels through the blood, invisible but unmistakable. You follow one now, a stream of luteinizing hormone as it drifts downward, carried in the blood to the ovaries. It arrives not like a sudden knock, but like the light of morning reaching a room. The cells there recognize the message. They respond with estrogen and progesterone, guiding the rhythms of fertility, preparing the body to create new life. In a different body, the same hormone travels to the testes, guiding the production of testosterone, helping to maintain strength, shape, and drive. These are not separate systems. They are two forms of the same silent music. You float away from the pituitary now, continuing through the bloodstream toward the base of the throat where a butterfly-shaped gland wraps around the trachea. This is the thyroid, soft and smooth, its surface humming with activity. The thyroid listens closely to the pituitary and responds by releasing thyroxine and triiodothyronine, hormones that regulate the body's metabolism. These signals increase or decrease the energy each cell produces, suiting the heat of the body, the speed of the heart, even the sharpness of the mind. Beside the thyroid lie four small glands, the parathyroids. They are quiet, nearly hidden, but essential. They release parathyroid hormone, which helps regulate calcium levels in the blood. Calcium is not just for bones. It is needed for muscle contraction, for nerve signaling, for clotting blood. The parathyroids work in real time, adjusting calcium moment by moment, making sure that balance is preserved. You follow the signal of one of these hormones as it moves toward the bones. You pass through the blood vessels of the femur again, but this time your focus is not on marrow or structure. It is on exchange. The hormone speaks to the bone cells. Osteoclasts begin to break down bone matrix, releasing calcium into the blood when it is needed elsewhere. Later, the hormone levels will drop, and osteoblasts will rebuild what was taken. This is not waste. It is trade. The endocrine system knows how to borrow from one place to feed another, always with the intent to repay. You drift lower now, toward the abdomen, where two small triangular glands rest above the kidneys. These are the adrenal glands, one atop each kidney, shaped like gentle caps. You pass through the outer layer first, the adrenal cortex. Here, corticosteroids are produced, helping to manage stress, regulate salt and water balance, and suppress inflammation. Cortisol, the most well-known of these, is not a danger. It is a helper. It prepares the body for challenge. It wakes the mind. It helps the body heal. You move inward into the adrenal medulla. This inner core releases epinephrine and norepinephrine, also known as adrenaline and noradrenaline. These hormones act quickly. They raise the heart rate, open airways, increase blood flow to muscles. They are part of the fight or flight response, but they are not reckless. They are precise, and they fade when their work is done. The adrenal glands do not act alone. They respond to signals. They adapt. They adjust based on the needs of the moment. You see them working in harmony with the nervous system, one side chemical, the other electrical. Together they form a bridge between thought and body. You continue now through the pancreas, nestled behind the stomach. You've seen this place before, where enzymes are produced for digestion. But another part of the pancreas, the islets of Langerhans, has a different role. These clusters of cells release insulin and glucagon, guiding the body's use of glucose. You follow insulin as it leaves the islets, drifting toward the muscles and fat cells. It is a gentle request, asking the cells to open their doors to allow glucose inside. The energy is stored, ready for use. Later, if blood sugar drops, glucagon is released, telling the liver to release stored glucose back into the blood. This balance is constant. It shifts with meals, with motion, with sleep. It is always in motion like the tide. You rise again toward the brain. There are hormones here too. The pineal gland, deep within the center of the brain, produces melatonin in response to darkness. This hormone flows gently through the blood, helping the body drift into sleep. Its release is tied to the sun, to patterns of day and night. The body feels the world through it. It rests because of it. You pass by oxytocin, released during childbirth and breastfeeding, during touch and closeness. It moves through the blood and also acts within the brain, shaping trust, deepening bonds, building connection. You follow a trail of it as it passes through the bloodstream, arriving not with urgency, but with warmth. There is another hormone, vasopressin, that helps the kidneys retain water. It adjusts based on hydration, holding back or allowing release. The body does not waste. It listens. And the endocrine system guides that listening with care. You begin to notice how far the reach of these hormones truly is. Growth, healing, emotion, metabolism, sleep. Every cell is tuned to at least one hormone. Some listen to many. Receptors on their surfaces act like locks, and hormones are the keys. When the key fits, the cell responds. The response is always specific, always planned. You have traveled through glands and blood vessels, through tissues and timing. You have seen how hormones rise and fall, not in chaos, but in rhythm. There are peaks in the morning, valleys at night, surges with food, pauses in sleep. It is not a line, it is a wave. The endocrine system is the body's inner tide, and like the tide, it brings what is needed. Then it draws back. You rest now in the flow of the bloodstream. The hormones around you are few. The work of the day has slowed. Night is falling. Melatonin is rising. Cortisol has faded. The body is preparing to sleep. Even the messengers grow quiet, but they do not stop. Even in sleep, they guide healing. Growth hormone pulses in the night, helping cells divide and repair. The liver listens and adjusts. The pancreas maintains its watch. The body is never still, but it is peaceful. You have seen how the body communicates without words, how it adjusts without panic, how it senses, responds, and rebalances. The endocrine system does not act for attention. It acts for stability. Its voice is soft, but it is always heard. The journey continues, and the path ahead is waiting. Part 11. The senses awake. You are drifting again, slow and steady, through the upper branches of the bloodstream. The body around you is resting. The muscles are soft. The heartbeat is gentle. The breath is deep and slow. But ahead of you lies a place where quiet becomes awareness, where silence meets sensation. You are moving toward the senses. The journey through the body has brought you through organs that build, cleanse, protect, and restore. But now you are entering the delicate spaces where the world is received, where information is drawn in not by hunger or force, but by light and sound, by pressure and vibration, by taste and scent. The senses do not create, they interpret. They guide the self gently outward, making the invisible known. Your first destination is the eye. You float slowly through a capillary near the optic nerve, rising gently toward the back of the eye. The space around you grows clearer, softer. The light changes. It becomes diffuse, like the first glow before dawn. You pass out of the blood vessel and into the soft layers of tissue that form the retina. The retina curves like a shallow bowl at the back of the eye. It is made of light-sensitive cells, each one tuned to respond to photons, the smallest packets of light. The cells here are quiet now, but not asleep. They are waiting, as they always are, for light to return. You pass through the outer layers of the retina, deeper into the thin layer where photoreceptors live. There are two kinds, rods and cones. The rods are more numerous. They lie farther out, away from the center, tuned to detect low levels of light. You pass among them, long and slender, their surfaces ready to absorb faint glimmers of brightness. Rods do not perceive color. They sense shape, motion, contrast. They are what allows us to see in the dark, to feel form without hue. Near the center of the retina, in the area called the fovea, the cones cluster more tightly. You drift slowly into this space. The cones are shorter and thicker, and they respond to color. Some are sensitive to red light, others to green, and still others to blue. Together, they allow the eye to perceive millions of shades, mixing and layering color like a painter with a palette of endless variety. When light strikes a rod or cone, a cascade begins. A molecule inside the cell changes shape. That change triggers an electrical signal. The signal is passed to the next layer of cells in the retina, bipolar cells, then ganglion cells, each stage refining, filtering, sharpening the image. Finally, the signal reaches the optic nerve. You follow it now, drifting beside the long fibers of the ganglion cells as they form the optic nerve. It is a thick bundle, carrying all the visual information from the eye to the brain. The fibers travel side by side, some crossing at the optic chiasm to reach the opposite hemisphere. The signals arrive at the lateral geniculate nucleus of the thalamus, where they are sorted and passed on to the visual cortex. You travel with one of those signals, gentle as a whisper, until it reaches the back of the brain, the occipital lobe. Here, in the visual cortex, the signal becomes shape, then color, then motion. The mind sees not with the eye alone, but with the interpretation the brain provides. What was once only light has become meaning. You rest for a moment in this quiet understanding. Sight is not a command. It is a gift, received and constructed in layers, softly, endlessly. From here, you float sideways through the brain, guided now by vibration. Your next stop is the ear. You descend along a vessel that feeds the structures of the inner ear. The outer ear has passed already, the folds of cartilage that gather sound, the ear canal that channels it inward. You enter the middle ear, where the tympanic membrane, the eardrum, stretches like a delicate canvas. It is still now, at rest, but you can imagine how it moves, catching sound waves from the air, trembling with each vibration. Behind the eardrum lie the ossicles, three of the smallest bones in the body: the malleus, incus, and stapes, hammer, anvil, and stirrup. You pass beside them, their shapes delicate and refined. They transmit the motion of the eardrum deeper into the inner ear, increasing the signal's strength without distorting its pattern. It is a mechanical symphony, played in miniature, never heard but always precise. You enter the cochlea, the spiral-shaped chamber at the heart of hearing. The inside is filled with fluid and divided into chambers. Along the basilar membrane, tiny hair cells line up in rows, their cilia swaying with the motion of sound. You drift along this membrane, watching as a wave passes through the fluid. The motion is subtle, rolling, as if a soft wind were brushing through tall grass. The hair cells bend. They open channels. They send signals. Different sections of the cochlea respond to different frequencies, higher near the base, lower near the tip. The ear translates pitch by location, by how far the wave travels. Each sound is separated, sorted, and sent along the auditory nerve to the brain. You follow a signal now, moving upward once again. It reaches the auditory cortex in the temporal lobe. Here, sound becomes meaning, a voice, a note, a memory. The brain connects the vibrations to recognition, and in doing so, creates music, language, emotion. You understand now that hearing is not only detection, it is awareness. It is placing a sound in space, in time, in feeling. You move on, guided now by touch. You return to the skin, which you visited before. But now your focus is not on structure or defense. It is on the nerves that lie just beneath the surface. You follow one now, a sensory fiber that begins in the fingertip. The skin receives a gentle press. The nerve endings detect the change. Some respond to texture, others to vibration, others to warmth or coolness. The signal travels along the nerve to the spine, then to the somatosensory cortex in the brain. Each region of the skin has its map here, its own place. You travel with the signal until it reaches the brain. And then you feel what it means, not just that the skin was touched, but what kind of touch it was. A brush, a weight, a point, the texture of stone, the warmth of a hand. The world is made solid through touch. Farther back in the mouth and nose, taste and smell continue their quiet work. You drift toward the tongue, where clusters of taste buds lie tucked into the papillae. Each bud contains cells that respond to one of the 5 basic tastes: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. Molecules from food dissolve in saliva and bind to these cells, sending signals to the brainstem and then to the gustatory cortex. You float beside a signal as it travels, realizing that taste is not just flavor, but memory, emotion, comfort. Near the top of the nasal cavity, you find the olfactory bulb. Tiny hair-like receptors catch scent molecules as they drift on inhaled air. Unlike other senses, smell bypasses the thalamus and connects directly to the limbic system, the brain's emotional center. You follow a scent now, carried on a molecule of air. It reaches the brain, and memory unfolds. A field, a fire, a person, a time. Scent is the sense of remembrance. You rest now at the center of the senses. The body sees and hears and feels without needing to be asked. It listens to the world and reflects it inward. The signals come and go, arriving in light and sound and touch, then transformed into awareness, memory, meaning. You have moved through the corridors of sensation, through cones and rods, through hair cells and nerves, through taste buds and receptors. You have seen how the body receives the world not as chaos, but as music. Each sense with its own key, its own tempo, its own silence. The senses are always awake, even in rest. They watch, they wait, they whisper. The journey continues, and the path ahead is waiting. Part 12. The Seeds of Renewal. You are drifting once more, slowly and without effort, through the deeper vessels of the abdomen. Around you, the blood moves with its steady rhythm, bringing nourishment to tissues, carrying messages from distant glands. You have followed it through systems that digest, that breathe, that remember, that feel. And now you are being drawn again, not to a place of action, but to a place of preparation. A place where time moves slowly, where life waits with patience. You are entering the reproductive system. The blood vessels here are not as dense as in the heart or the liver. They do not pulse with urgency. Their purpose is quieter. They bring hormones, nutrients, and oxygen, but more than that, they bring readiness. The organs of reproduction do not work constantly. They follow rhythms, cycles, patterns shaped by weeks, months, even years. Their language is different from the organs that pump and filter. Their task is not maintenance, it is creation. You begin in the female body. You float gently toward the lower abdomen, where the ovaries rest, one on each side, near the curve of the pelvic bone. They are small, no larger than an almond, but filled with complexity and quiet potential. Each ovary contains hundreds of thousands of follicles, each one holding an immature egg cell, a tiny oocyte surrounded by layers of supportive tissue. Most will never mature, but some will. You pass through the ovarian tissue, watching as hormones guide the process. Follicle, stimulating hormone, released by the pituitary, arrives in the blood, whispering a message. It tells the ovary to begin again, to choose a new follicle for growth. One is selected. It grows slowly, surrounded by granulosa cells that nourish it, protect it, and begin producing estrogen. Estrogen levels rise. They travel through the blood, reaching the hypothalamus and pituitary. A feedback loop begins. The body listens. When estrogen peaks, it signals the release of luteinizing hormone. This sudden shift triggers ovulation. You watch the follicle reach its fullness. The outer layer thins. Then, without sound, the oocyte is released. It is caught by the fimbria of the fallopian tube, delicate fingers that sweep gently across the surface of the ovary. The egg enters the tube and begins a slow journey inward. The fallopian tube is narrow and lined with tiny hairs, cilia, that move in waves, guiding the egg toward the uterus. It will take days to reach the end. Along the way, if sperm are present, fertilization may occur. The egg is prepared, but it waits quietly. It does not force. It does not rush. You drift down toward the uterus now, a muscular organ with soft, flexible walls. Each month, guided by estrogen and progesterone, the lining of the uterus thickens, preparing to receive a fertilized egg. Blood vessels grow. Cells divide. The tissue becomes rich with nutrients. If no egg arrives, the lining is shed. This is menstruation, a natural rhythm. A cycle of preparation and release guided entirely by hormones that rise and fall in peaceful coordination. You drift outward now, toward the cervix, the narrow opening at the base of the uterus. It connects to the vagina, a muscular canal that opens to the outside. This passage is elastic, able to stretch and return. It is self-cleaning, with pH levels that protect against infection. It is not just a passageway, it is part of the system of renewal. Throughout this journey, you see the influence of the endocrine system, the signals that shape each stage. Estrogen and progesterone guide the cycle. Oxytocin assists in contraction and bonding. Prolactin, released after childbirth, prepares the breast to produce milk. You pause near the mammary glands, watching the lobules prepare to respond. They wait quietly for the signal of need. When it comes, milk will be produced and carried through tiny ducts to the nipple. Even this, too, is a rhythm, a response, a message of care. You drift away now, crossing to the male reproductive system. The change is gradual. The design is different, but the purpose remains the same. To prepare, to preserve, to offer a seed. You enter the scrotum, where the testes rest outside the body cavity, kept slightly cooler than the core temperature. It is here, within the seminiferous tubules, that sperm cells are produced. You float through one of these coiled tubes, watching as a single cell begins its transformation. The process is long, nearly 3 months. The cell divides and changes, becoming smaller, more specialized. A tail forms. The nucleus condenses. The sperm cell is released into the lumen of the tubule, then carried through a series of ducts to the epididymis. You pause here. The epididymis is where sperm mature and learn to move. It is a long, looping structure, nestled against the testis. The sperm remain here for days, coiled and quiet, until a signal arrives. When arousal occurs, a series of muscular contractions begins. Sperm are carried through the vas deferens, a long tube that ascends into the pelvic cavity. Along the way, fluids from the seminal vesicles and the prostate gland are added. These fluids nourish the sperm, protect them, and give them mobility. You follow the mixture as it moves into the urethra, a shared pathway that also serves the bladder. Here, the body ensures that urine and semen are never released at the same time. Valves close. Pathways shift. The system adjusts. You move gently into the surrounding tissues. Hormones shape these processes too. Testosterone supports sperm production, libido, and secondary characteristics. It is released in pulses guided by signals from the brain. It fluctuates with time, with age, with balance. Oxytocin and dopamine are released during intimacy. They build connection, create closeness. The body does not separate reproduction from emotion. It weaves them together, one breath at a time. You pause now in the bloodstream, watching as hormones drift once more. GnRH from the hypothalamus, FSH and LH from the pituitary, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Each one speaks to the reproductive system in a different way. Each one follows cycles. In females, the cycle follows the moon, roughly 28 days. In males, the cycles are quieter, more steady. But both are guided by time, by light, by age, by experience. Fertility rises and falls. It is not a flaw. It is the rhythm of life. You drift back toward the pelvis. You have seen organs that do not move often, yet hold the potential for the greatest transformation. In pregnancy, the uterus expands. The blood volume increases. Hormones rise in great waves. A placenta forms. Life is nourished within life. And still, the body does not boast. It simply adapts. And when the time comes, the body responds with precision. Muscles contract. The cervix softens. Hormones coordinate everything. Prostaglandins, oxytocin, relaxin. Each one helping. Each one part of a greater plan. Even in birth, when the body is pushed to its edge, there is order. Afterward, the body remembers. The uterus contracts. The tissues heal. Milk flows. Hormones shift again. The balance returns. You are moving again, leaving the reproductive system behind. But you carry with you a deeper understanding. These organs are not only about beginning. They are about rhythm, renewal, possibility. They hold the capacity for life, but also the grace to wait, to rest, to return to balance. Whether the body creates life or not, these systems are not idle. They support bone health, muscle tone, mood, memory. They are not separate from the self. They are part of it. You float in the quiet blood, watching as estrogen passes by. Then testosterone, then oxytocin. They are not at war. They are not opposite. They are simply different shapes of the same whisper. You are near the center of life, not because of what is built here, but because of what is offered. The body does not rush to create. It prepares. It listens. It holds space for what might be. That is the truest kind of strength. The journey continues, and the path ahead is waiting. Part 13. The Memory of Healing. You are floating gently again, deeper now, within the quiet spaces of the bloodstream. The pulse around you is steady, calm. The journey has taken you through organs that nourish and protect, that breathe and balance, that sense and create. But beneath all of these, holding the body together day after day, is another force. It does not build bone or form blood. It does not digest or see or hear. Yet it is always awake, always listening. You are entering the realm of the immune system. There is no single place you can point to and say, here it lives. The immune system is a network, flowing through blood, resting in marrow, waiting in lymph nodes. It has no single rhythm, but it moves with purpose. It remembers. It learns. And quietly, without sound, it protects. You drift first toward the bone marrow. It is not far. You pass between vessels until you arrive inside the long shaft of a bone, perhaps the femur or the ribs. Inside, the marrow is soft and rich, not the dry emptiness once imagined. This is where blood begins. Red cells, white cells, platelets, all of them born here in silence. You pass by hematopoietic stem cells. They are not shaped yet. They wait, full of potential, until the body decides. Some will become red cells ferrying oxygen, others platelets to seal wounds. But many will become white blood cells, the quiet sentinels of the immune system. You watch as one stem cell begins its journey. It divides and becomes a lymphocyte, small and round, with a large nucleus, like a watchful eye. It is not fully trained yet. It must travel elsewhere to learn. Some lymphocytes journey to the thymus, a small gland behind the breastbone. You follow one now, rising gently into the soft folds of the thymic tissue. Here, T cells are taught the difference between self and not self. They learn what to ignore and what to fight. The training is careful. Only those that recognize the body's needs without turning against it are allowed to continue. Others remain in the bone marrow and become B cells. These will learn to produce antibodies, the body's long-range defense. You leave the thymus and travel through the lymphatic system. Unlike the bloodstream, the lymph flows slowly, moved by the body's own motion. It collects fluid from the tissues, carries waste, and brings cells to the lymph nodes. You drift toward a lymph node now, a small bean-shaped structure tucked beside a blood vessel. Inside, it is alive with motion. Lymphocytes gather here. They meet foreign particles. They sample. They decide. If something unfamiliar is found, a virus, a bacterium, the immune system awakens. T cells are activated. B cells begin to multiply. Some become plasma cells, releasing antibodies into the blood. These antibodies are shaped precisely for their target, like a key fitting a lock. They mark invaders for destruction, neutralize them, or call other cells to help. You pass beside a macrophage, a large immune cell that patrols the tissues. It swallows what does not belong, digests it, and displays parts of it on its surface for other cells to read. It is both cleaner and teacher, sweeping the tissues while spreading knowledge. Natural killer cells move past you next, faster, more focused. They do not wait for permission. They detect cells that are sick or changed, and they act. Yet even they follow signals. They do not destroy without guidance. The immune system works in layers. The first layer is the barrier, the skin, the mucous membranes, the stomach acid, the tears. These try to prevent invaders from entering at all. The second layer is the innate response, fast, general, always ready. These are the phagocytes, the natural killers, the complement proteins that coat and target. The third layer is the adaptive response, slower but precise. The T cells and B cells, the memory cells, the ones that remember. You follow a memory cell now, a B cell that once encountered a virus. It was activated, multiplied, and fought. And then, when the infection passed, it remained. Now it floats through the blood, quiet but alert. If the same virus returns, it will respond faster, stronger. This is why immunity lasts, why vaccines work. The memory lives on. Even T cells form memory. They patrol. They wait. When a pathogen reappears, they do not hesitate. The immune system learns. It adapts. But it does not forget. You move now to the spleen, resting beneath the ribs on the left side of the body. It filters blood, removing old red cells and broken fragments. But it also holds immune cells ready to respond to infections in the blood. It is soft inside, full of blood and quiet purpose. You pass through red pulp and white pulp, through cords and sinuses. You see B cells and T cells gathering in the white pulp, forming responses. You see macrophages sweeping the red pulp, clearing debris. Even here, healing happens. You return now to the tissues of the body, to the lungs, the intestines, the skin. In each place there are immune cells. In the lungs, alveolar macrophages wait for particles carried by breath. In the intestines, Peyer's patches sample the food and watch for danger. In the skin, dendritic cells wait just beneath the surface, alert to every scrape. You begin to notice the quiet intelligence of it all. The immune system is not at war. It is a gardener, a caretaker, a listener. It is vigilant, but not violent. It responds when needed and then it stops. When healing begins, other cells arrive. Platelets gather first, sealing the wound. Then immune cells clear away debris. Fibroblasts come last, laying down new collagen. Blood vessels regrow. Skin reforms. It may leave a scar, but even that is healing. Every day, cells die and are replaced. The lining of the gut renews itself every few days. The skin every few weeks. Blood cells are born and recycled. The immune system guides these rhythms. Even in aging, the immune system adjusts. The thymus shrinks. The responses grow slower. But memory cells remain. They continue to protect even after years have passed. You float now through the blood again, watching as cells pass in silence: neutrophils, monocytes, eosinophils, each one with its own task. Each one shaped for a specific role. You see them not as soldiers but as caretakers. They move with purpose, not destruction. You rest near a wound now, healing in progress. The tissue is warm. The vessels are dilated. White cells move in. Cytokines, small chemical messengers, are released to guide them. The redness, the swelling, even the pain are part of the process. They signal change. They signal repair. And then, slowly, the inflammation fades. The vessels return to normal. The cells withdraw. Scar tissue forms. The job is done. The body has healed again. You remember the liver, where toxins were filtered. The bones, where cells were born. The brain, where emotions were felt. And now you see that every system depends on the immune system to protect them. It is always in the background, always adjusting, always remembering. And yet it does not dominate. It is not loud. It simply responds. You begin to rise now gently through the blood vessels once more. The journey is nearly complete. But you carry something with you, an understanding. The body is not built once. It is built again and again in every moment. It heals not only wounds, but itself. Every day, cells break and mend. Tissues are replaced. Signals shift. And beneath it all, the immune system keeps watch. The memory of healing is long. It is carried not just in scars, but in the shape of cells, in the way they move, in the way they rest. You drift through the blood, and for a moment you feel what it is like to be whole. Not because there is no damage, but because everything is still responding, still learning, still becoming. The journey continues, and the path ahead is waiting. Part 14. The Silent Bridge. You are floating once more in the quiet blood, where each pulse is a whisper and each cell moves with purpose. The journey has taken you through systems that nourish, cleanse, protect, and sense. You have seen how the body remembers, how it repairs, how it prepares for life. Now you are being drawn toward the body's central bridge, the place where sensation meets motion, and thought becomes action without sound. You are entering the spinal cord. It lies within the hollow channel of the spine, protected by the bones of the vertebrae. You rise gently toward it now, following a narrow blood vessel as it winds between the vertebrae, through the spaces carved by time and motion. The spine is not rigid. It bends with the body. It protects, yes, but it also allows movement. As you move closer, you pass between layers of connective tissue called meninges. These soft sheaths wrap the spinal cord in care, the dura mater, strong and firm, the arachnoid, delicate and web-like, the pia, thin and close, following every contour. Between them flows cerebrospinal fluid, cushioning each shift, each breath, each step. And within these layers lies the spinal cord itself, a column of nerve tissue, pale and glistening, stretching from the base of the brain down to the lower back. It tapers gently, not ending but branching into a collection of nerves called the coda equina, the horse's tail. This is not the end, only a continuation. You drift into the spinal cord now. The outer portion is white matter, long tracts of nerve fibers that carry signals up and down, from brain to body and back again. They move fast, like quiet lightning without friction or delay. The inner portion is gray matter, shaped like a butterfly where processing happens. Here, neurons pass messages, sort responses, adjust for balance and posture and need. You begin to see how the spinal cord is not simply a passageway. It is a place of decision. Sensory information arrives from the body, from the skin, from the joints, from the organs. It enters the spinal cord through the dorsal roots. The signals rise toward the brain, traveling through specific tracts. Some carry fine touch and vibration. Others carry pain, temperature, or pressure. At the same time, signals descend from the brain through motor tracts in the white matter, leaving through the ventral roots. These are the commands that move muscles, adjust posture, change direction. But not every message reaches the brain first. You pause at the sight of a reflex. A small hammer taps the patellar tendon below the knee. The quadriceps muscle stretches. This stretch is sensed by specialized receptors which send a signal into the spinal cord. Here, in the gray matter, the sensory neuron connects directly to a motor neuron. No brain is needed. The muscle contracts. The leg kicks gently forward. It is called a reflex arc, a loop that protects, that corrects, that maintains balance without thought. There are many like it. A hand touches something hot. The signal reaches the spinal cord. A response is sent before the brain even understands. The hand pulls back. The skin is spared. Even posture is managed in this way, small adjustments in muscle tone, guided by feedback from joints and inner ear, handled partly within the cord itself. The body does not wait for the brain to speak. It acts when needed. Still, the connection to the brain is always there. The spinal cord is a bridge, not just of information, but of trust. The brain listens to the body. The body listens to the brain. You drift along the white matter now, passing columns of bundled axons, each coated in myelin. These layers of fat insulate the signal, allowing it to travel faster. The myelin is produced by glial cells, quiet supporters of neural function. They do not carry messages, but they make messages possible. You pass nodes, tiny gaps in the myelin where the signal jumps, gaining speed. This process is called saltatory conduction. It is fast, but precise. The body never rushes without reason. As you follow the descending tracks, you reach the motor neurons in the ventral horn. Their cell bodies are large, with long axons stretching outward to the muscles. You pass along one now, leaving the spinal cord, entering a spinal nerve, traveling through the peripheral nervous system. Each spinal nerve branches into smaller and smaller pathways, innervating the limbs, the torso, the organs. They carry not only motion but also feedback, pressure, temperature, stretch. You float down one nerve to the hand. The muscles here are small and fine. They allow for grasping, writing, touching. The nerves control each finger, each joint. Some carry motor commands. Others bring sensation, the feeling of soft fabric, the edge of paper, the warmth of another hand. You travel back up, now passing sensory neurons, small and quick, returning to the spinal cord. The loop is continuous. You pass through the cervical spine, where nerves control the arms and neck. The thoracic spine, guiding the trunk. The lumbar and sacral regions, reaching the legs and lower organs. Each section is part of the whole, and surrounding all of this is muscle, not just to move, but to protect. The deep muscles of the back hold the spine in alignment. The abdominal muscles support from the front. Ligaments hold bone to bone. Discs cushion each vertebra. The spine is not one piece. It is many, moving together. You pause again in the cerebrospinal fluid, drifting gently as the body rests. This fluid is produced in the brain's ventricles and circulates through the spinal cord and back again. It clears waste, brings nutrients, protects from impact. It is renewed constantly. Even stillness has motion. As night deepens, the signals in the spinal cord begin to quiet. Reflexes slow. The muscles relax. The descending motor commands grow sparse. The body prepares for sleep, but the bridge remains open. The spinal cord still listens. It still responds. If the bladder fills, the spinal cord senses it. If the body rolls in sleep, the cord adjusts posture. If a noise startles, a signal passes upward, waking the mind. And when the brain dreams, signals pass down. Small movements in the fingers, a twitch in the eyes. The cord still carries them. You begin to feel how connected everything truly is. The spinal cord is not separate from the rest of the journey. It links every sense, every muscle, every system. It is the thread that ties the body into one living whole. Even in sleep, it holds that unity. You float now through the central canal of the cord, a thin channel filled with cerebrospinal fluid. It is narrow, almost closed in places, but it reminds you that at the center of everything there is still space, still flow, still openness. The spinal cord does not ask to be noticed. It does not need praise. But it carries the messages that allow you to move, to touch, to hold, to feel. You leave the cord now, drifting once more toward the blood, toward the rhythm of the heart. But something has changed. You carry with you the awareness that every step, every breath, every motion has passed through this silent bridge, and still does. The journey nears its end. But even here there is peace. The signals slow. The body rests. And the path ahead is waiting. Part 15. Returning to the river. You are floating once more, weightless and unhurried, back within the bloodstream. It is quieter now than it was in the beginning. Not because the body has changed, but because you have changed. You have listened. You have followed the currents. You have seen the paths that nourish and protect and renew. Now you return, not as a visitor, but as one who knows the way. The river you drift within carries more than blood. It carries memory. It carries oxygen, warmth, the soft messages of hormones, and the breath of life itself. You do not need to steer. The current knows you now. It welcomes you, the way a familiar stream welcomes a fallen leaf. You are carried gently onward. The body breathes in a steady rhythm. The chest rises. The diaphragm lowers. Oxygen flows in, slipping into the lungs with the soundless ease of mist rolling over quiet hills. You pass the lungs once more. The alveoli open and close like tiny blossoms, still exchanging life in each breath. The oxygen you watched arrive earlier is now moving onward, fueling every motion, every thought. Carbon dioxide leaves in its place, drawn away with every exhale. You drift past the heart again, its chambers as steady as ever. For rooms, for doors, each one opening in time. The blood you travel within flows forward in strong but gentle pulses. Each beat is a reminder, a metronome of living, a rhythm that began before birth and continues now, unbroken. You listen to it not just with your ears, but with your whole awareness. It has become your companion. From here, you move outward through the arteries and capillaries, retracing some of the paths you once explored. You pass the stomach again, now at rest. Its walls lie soft, its secretions calm. The digestive process is quiet now. like a kitchen long cleaned after a meal. The liver nearby still works, slowly filtering and transforming. Nothing in the body is ever truly idle. Even in rest, there is purpose. You float through the intestines, where bacteria and cells maintain their balance. Enzymes work without need for light or thanks. The large intestine draws in water, shaping what remains into form and memory. You pass silently through the folds of the gut, knowing now what they hold. Not just waste, but the final thread of nourishment. You continue toward the kidneys, and even though you have seen them before, they greet you now with greater clarity. The nephrons filter the blood gently, removing what is no longer needed, sending it onward in another direction. The ureters carry this filtered water away while the rest of the blood re-enters the flow. It is not rejection, it is release. You rise again. You pass the bones now with a different understanding. You see not just their strength, but their softness, their marrow, their silence. You remember how the blood itself began there. Cells growing in the quiet dark, shaped by signals that flow from the mind, the glands, the needs of the day. The skeleton is not a cage, it is a cradle, and above the bones the muscles lie warm. Still, perhaps, or maybe shifting gently in sleep. Their fibers, once filled with action, now lengthen in rest. The motor neurons that guided them earlier are silent now, but the muscles are not forgotten. They are repaired as you drift. Microtears healed. Energy stores restored. The endocrine system flows around you. Hormones glide past like whispers in water. Estrogen, testosterone, insulin, cortisol. Each one moves without sound, their effects unfolding in minutes or hours, never in haste. The glands rest but remain ready. The pituitary and hypothalamus hold the center. They adjust according to light, hunger, memory, need. The lymphatic system continues its gentle work, moving fluids and watching for what does not belong. You drift past a lymph node where immune cells still gather. Some are resting, some are watching. Some are remembering what came before. They are quiet now, but alert. You think of the immune system not as a defense, but as a keeper of balance. It listens more than it speaks. It responds only when needed. And when the danger passes, it returns to stillness. You pass the reproductive system once more, and now its calmness is more visible. The cycles continue. The tissues prepare. Whether for creation or simply for rhythm, the organs rest in a state of gentle readiness. They do not rush, they do not demand. They follow time, like tides, and then you pass the skin, no longer just a boundary, but a world of sensation. You remember the nerves beneath it, the way it feels texture and temperature. You drift near the fingertips now, and sense returns in slow waves, not loud, not sharp, but present. The body still feels, even when the mind lets go. You rise higher toward the brain. You pass the base of the skull. The blood vessels widen here, forming a circle that ensures the brain always receives what it needs. You follow one branch toward the cortex, slipping into the folds of gray matter that hold thought and memory and sensation. You do not stay in any one place long. Instead, you pass through them like a dream returning to itself. The occipital lobe, where sight is formed. The temporal lobe, where sound becomes meaning. The parietal lobe, where space and touch and motion are understood. The frontal lobe, where choice and thought and personality dwell. And then gently you descend once more into the deeper brain. The thalamus passing messages. The hypothalamus measuring temperature, emotion, hunger. The pineal gland responding to the absence of light. Melatonin is released, and sleep deepens. You drift through the brainstem, where breath is managed, where heart rate is maintained. You do not need to think of these things. The body holds them for you. Even in sleep, it remembers what to do. The spinal cord beneath it still carries signals. Fewer now, slower, but steady. If a limb grows cold, it shifts. If a breath grows shallow, it adjusts. There is still presence, even in unconsciousness. The nervous system does not sleep, not fully. It rests with one eye open, like a lantern burning low. You follow the cerebrospinal fluid now, as it flows around the brain and down the spinal cord. It moves and pulses linked to the heartbeat. It is gentle, clear, and constant. It protects. It cleanses. It is the body's tide. You let it carry you. You are returning now. Not to where you began, but to a place very near it. The major veins draw you inward. The inferior vena cava opens before you, wide and calm. You are carried back to the right side of the heart. The blood around you is darker now, but not in a way that feels sad. It is simply changed. It has given, it has served, and now it rests. The right atrium draws you in. The valve opens. You pass to the right ventricle, then into the pulmonary artery. You rise to the lungs again. The air is cool. The breath is slow. Oxygen flows in. The blood is renewed. You pass again to the left side of the heart, the atrium, the ventricle, and outward. And you realize something. You are not leaving the body. You are becoming it. You have passed through every chamber, every vessel, every cell. You have seen not just what the body does, but how it does it with care, with rhythm, with patience. You understand now that the body is not a machine. It is a garden, a home, a companion. You rise gently toward the surface of awareness. The blood still moves, the breath still flows, but your journey is complete. You have been inside the spaces that create motion, thought, feeling, life. And now, as you rest, your body carries on. It needs no instruction. It remembers. The journey ends not with a stop, but with a return to stillness, to breathe, to being. You are here, and the body is with you.